I'm Omer Raines. I'm sitting in today for our regular host, John O'Brien, and welcoming you to another episode of Old Tales of Nevada, Past and Present. We have an amazing story to tell today, a fabulous guest. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Let's face it, flooding is a fact of life. You may not be able to predict, but you can always prepare to avoid losses to structures, land, and even lives. Traditional protection like sandbags many times don't work. The new solution, trap bag flood and erosion systems. Low cost, great support, high stability, and load capacity. Easy to store and move with quick and easy installation. Protect your life, home, business, or land. For more information on this revolutionary flood and erosion system, contact Trap Bag today.
All of us at Shoeman's Custom Cycle are ready to get you and your Harley ready for the road. From oil and tire changes to high-performance engine upgrades and dyno tuning, we at Shoeman's have got you covered with experienced factory-certified mechanics and a full-service machine shop loaded with parts and accessories. Shoeman's Custom Cycle has been serving Northern Nevada since 1988, so ride on down to Shoeman's Custom Cycle at 275 East 4th Street in downtown Reno.
Shoeman's Custom Cycle, we're the biker's bike shop.
Welcome back again, folks. Again, I'm Omer Raines. I'm here with my co-host and our benefactor, Hugh Roy Marshall, and our very special guest. You're going to hear about his story as it unfolds. We call it From Glen to Google. But first, we usually start this program with an explanation by Hugh Roy about why we do this program. Hugh Roy?
You betcha. Well, welcome, Omer. Yes, we do this show every week to teach people about why we should be proud of the state of Nevada and to live here. And there's an awful lot of things that people don't know about the state that are very, very important historically to the United States. And a lot of that is present, but a lot of it is past, because it was the miners from the Comstock who donated $7 to $8 million to Abraham Lincoln to pay off England, France, and Germany after the Civil War. Otherwise, we would have been France, Germany, and England instead of the United States of America. And also in the state of Nevada, the first dollar was developed from silver from the Comstock, which formed one of the most major currency units on the planet, the U.S. dollar. And it was very necessary at that time because there wasn't any silver around in order to make up change for the gold currency that was already in circulation. So we have a lot of things to be proud about living in the state of Nevada. That's just one of them. And today we have part of the technological aspects of our state, which many people don't know about, which is really coming out now on the TV every day. You see a new Google coming to build a factory or another entity, so we're becoming a very high-tech place in the present. But in the past, it was a very important state too. So we have a lot to be thankful for, and we're thankful for Dr. Bill Torch, who is here to tell us about his inventions, which really have been earth-shattering for the United States of America, and another thing that we have to be proud of to be state of Nevada citizen here.
Well, thank you. And the Google announcement is particularly timing given today's guest. Today's guest is Dr. William Torch. Dr. Torch is a noted physician, to be sure, but he's a multifaceted person, one of many talents. And today we're going to drill down on one of his close to 100 inventions. Former president of the Nevada Inventors Association, and one of his inventions is now helping to change the world as part of the Google empire. And we're going to drill down on that. We're calling it From Glen to Google, and you'll discover why. But let's start, Bill, by where did you grow up, and where did you get your education?
I grew up and was born in New York City. Grew up in Coney Island. My parents were immigrants. My father came from Russia in 1905 from the Ukraine, and my mother married him in the 1930s, and her parents were from Poland. I grew up in poverty, great poverty. My father.
No silver spoon?
No silver spoon. No silver spoon whatsoever. I had to create my own silver spoon.
Good. Go ahead.
I went to Abraham Lincoln High School. Talk about Abraham Lincoln, by the way, who was the first president to have a United States patent. That's another interesting factoid. I went to Abraham Lincoln High School and then to Brooklyn College. My father had died when I was around 12, and there was a lot of medical and mental health issues in the family, and I literally had to raise myself from the time I was around 16 years old. Thank God I was living in New York, had free education from Brooklyn College, City University of New York, which gave me my start, and I had grants from the Boys Street Foundation in New York to give me the monies to buy books for college, which I couldn't afford. And I had, over my lifetime, my wife had me document over 30 different jobs, ranging from a delivery boy delivering fruits and meats to shoe shining and carrying beach chairs on the beaches of Coney Island.
What was the situation with your mother? Was she raising you and perhaps others at the same time?
My mom was a single mom. She was raising my brother and I, and suffering from tremendous depression. I experienced lots of doctors in my life who came to visit my father when he was ill, and then my mom, who had a number of mental issues to deal with. And I was fascinated with the concept of the mind and the brain, and I decided at that time I wanted to be a psychiatrist or a neurologist.
Well, how did the family get by financially after the death of your father?
We were on welfare, ADC welfare.
Oh.
And that was for a good 18, 19 years.
But you were able to go to college and thereafter medical school?
Yes, and that was because tuition was relatively free at that time from the City University of New York. I had some scholarships. And then when I graduated from Brooklyn College, again, which was free, I went to the University of Rochester School of Medicine in Rochester, New York, and there I had 6 years of scholarships that paid for my entire tuition throughout the entire 6 years that I was there.
Did you learn any foreign languages along the way?
I learned French and German, which came in handy later on because I became a researcher, and a lot of the literature, scientific literature, was written in German and French. And I was fortunate enough to understand those languages to take me, for example, to the New York Academy Library of Medicine in Manhattan, where I would study and do research on issues relating to brain dysfunction, for example, Alzheimer's disease.
Now, I understand you also gained a facility in something that probably very few people have, and that was Braille?
Braille. Now, when I was around 17, I was going to Abraham Lincoln High School, and there were a group of nuns who came from the Plymouth Church, where, once again, Abraham Lincoln was a patron. Franklin Douglas was also a speaker at that time. It was during the pre-Civil War era. These nuns had started a Braille program to help the blind, and they recruited high school students to come to the Plymouth Church to learn Braille. I was interested in helping the blind, and I enlisted in this program along with 10 other high school students. The goal was to use a Braille board, and I brought it with me. I just discovered this.
Oh.
A Braille board, which I used to type a book, rather a short story called, I'll let you hold this here, called The Color of Outer Space. And the goal was to convert this short story into Braille. And here's a typical Braille sheet that was printed by me at that time.
So if you rub your hands on it, you can feel the
Yeah, you can actually,
characters.
and typically when you're doing Braille, You insert a piece of paper with ink platen, and you type from right to left, and when the sheet is finished, you turn it over and you read it from left to right, just as you would do regular English. This was all done by hand. It took me many months. I completed the manuscript, and I was the only one out of 10 students that got a Braille certificate from the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. The short story was reviewed by blind individuals who were reading and who, on success in the program, would allow you to have the honor of having a Braille certificate.
Amazing story. I mean, it's evident that you have great facilities, great talents that few of us would possess.
Thank
but
you.
We have so much to cover today. I'm going to fast forward now. I think it was in 1979 that you actually came to Reno, Nevada. Is that about right?
That's correct.
And what occasioned that?
Well, after graduating from the University of Rochester, I went to Boston, where I did my internship and residency in pediatrics and child psychiatry. I then worked at the Fernald State School for the Retarded. I was recruited as a commissioned officer, lieutenant commander in the U.S. Public Health Service, and worked at the NIMH in Bethesda, Maryland for 2 years. And then graduated from my residency program at Albert Einstein Medical Center in the Bronx in pediatric and adult neurology. I then wanted to get the hell out of New York. There was so much child abuse and child neglect that was very depressing to deal with. And by virtue of a sequence of travels to British Columbia and then to Southern California, I was recruited by the medical school in 1979, University of Nevada School of Medicine, as the first pediatric neurologist in the state of Nevada.
So that's what brought you to Reno.
Exactly. And I was a faculty member for many years doing basic research in neuroanatomy, and then gradually decided to start my own practice, the Neurodevelopmental and Neurodiagnostic Center, which then evolved into the Washoe Sleep Disorder Center. And in that capacity, I was also working as the medical director for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And I saw patients with Lou Gehrig's disease, muscular dystrophy, spinal muscular atrophy, such as the type that Stephen Hawking has, patients with brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, cerebral palsy, and stroke. And that takes me to Glenn, who is a patient of mine.
We're going to get to Glenn in just a moment. So, at this point in time, have you established the Washoe County Sleep Disorder Center?
Yes.
That's what year?
The Washoe Sleep Disorder Center was established around 2002, if I remember, and it went through 3 5-year reaccreditations. And during this period of time, I've seen up to 250,000 patient visits in Nevada.
Okay, we're going to take another commercial break, and we're going to pick up on that and drill down on the man you mentioned, Glenn. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Buy Nevada First Gift Shop and Visitor Center at the Reno Town Mall is the place to buy local Nevada-owned products. There is over 4,000 square feet of unique items to choose from. Art, jewelry, books, music, inventions, clothing, candy, pottery, toys, even Nevada-made wine and more. Why, you can even purchase a gift basket full of Nevada-owned products. Buy Nevada First Gift Shop, located at the Reno Town Mall, 4001 Virginia Street in Reno. Buy local first.
Hi, I'm Paula.
And I'm Dan. We're the producers of the Tanner's Marketplace Antiques and Craft Shows at the Livestock Event Center on Wells Avenue.
I'd also like to tell you about our everyday location. We're at Somewhere in Time on South Virginia Street. We're Antique Antiques, booth number 46.
You'll find paintings by Nevada artists, collectible glass, vintage jewelry, Native American jewelry and baskets, antiques and unusual to unique items.
Find it all at Antique Antiques inside Somewhere in Time at 1313 South Virginia Street.
Come see us.
For your spring and summer wardrobe, Soft pastels have arrived at Boutique Elegante. Wonderful sweaters, tunics, and capris create that special look. Bold and bright, the colors of summer in fabulous combinations of red, navy, white, or black. Beautiful chiffon skirts with coordinating tops. Imagine these fashions at your patio party, a day at the lake, or on a cruise. This and so much more at Boutique Elegante.
Hi, I'm Chris from Past Time at Somewhere in Time. Are you looking for that one-of-a-kind gift that you can't find in the big department store? I have something for all occasions. Got stuff? Need to know whether or not it has value or how to sell it? We can help with that too. Come and see me Tuesday or Wednesday at Past Time in Somewhere in Time at 1313 South Virginia Street in Reno. Just ask for Chris.
Again, welcome back, folks. Here we are with another episode of Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. We've got an amazing story that's about to unfold. So, Bill, when we ended and took the commercial break, you were about to tell us about somebody named Glenn.
Yes.
And the significance in his life, because I want to drill down on one of your over 75 patented inventions, because the story is international now.
Yes.
Tell us about Glenn.
Glenn was a 28 or 29-year-old gentleman who was in totally normal health until he came down with a viral infection which afflicted his brainstem, the part of the brain that connects the motor system to consciousness and higher mental functions. He was well one day, and the next day he had had a stroke which caused a blockage in blood flow to the brainstem, which left him in a state of coma. I was his neurological doctor at St. Mary's Hospital. I visited him every day, as I had seen all of my patients in the muscular dystrophy clinic, which was also stationed there. And Glenn was in a deep coma on a ventilator for at least a week. I would come over to him and pinch him and try to stimulate him to talk, but he couldn't move his lips, he couldn't move his eyes, his forehead muscles, his fingers, no matter how much discomfort you tried to induce by pinching and squeezing. And he was on this ventilator for another 2 weeks. The only interesting factoid was that his EEG looked normal. He had normal brainwave activity, so I knew that he was alive and had brain functions.
So he had cognitive ability.
Yeah, we didn't know that he had cognitive.
Brain seizure that he had, or
pardon?
Brain seizure that he
No
had?
seizures. He had normal alpha and theta activity, nothing localizing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go over to him and try to talk to him every day. No response. Then one day, he started blinking. Blink, blink, blink. He couldn't move his eyes. He couldn't wince. He couldn't move his lips. And I realized that there was some function coming back. And so I went over to Glenn and I said, Glenn, if you hear me, can you blink 7 times? And he blinked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Glenn, can you blink 2 times? 2 blinks. Glenn, can you tell me how much does 7 take away 2? And he blinked 5 times. No verbal expression whatsoever. And I suddenly realized this man was entombed in his body, and he had what we call locked-in syndrome. This had been described by several individuals in books. For example, Jean-Dominique Bauby, who is the editor of Elle magazine in France. Mm-hmm. He had had a stroke while driving and ended up in a locked-in state in a hospital outside of Paris, and he blinked a book called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which was turned into a movie several years ago, which I had the opportunity to see. I also read a book by Walter Murch. It was called In the Blink of an Eye. Walter Murch is a film editor who noted that he could monitor his own eye blinks to determine when to snip and cut and edit film. And he wrote this book. I realized that Glenn had the capability of blinking and communicating. I had this crazy thought, if I could harness those blinks and convert them into electronic signals, I might be able to convert them into dots and dashes with short and long blinks and convert those blinks into Morse code. I went looking for a software program, and I found, at the time Mac computers were at 16K, I found a program called Kinex, which allowed a person to convert mouse clicks, dots and dashes, to Morse code and then convert those into letters. So with that, I went to Radio Shack, and I realized that when you cross that electronic beam, it's an infrared beam that triggers a bell to announce that you've entered Radio Shack, the emitter and the detector could be used on the eyes of Glenn. So I bought an emitter and detector pair, and I built...
What did that cost you?
$2.50. Not counting tax. And with the help of a high school student who was versed in electrical wiring, as I was through my experiences in Abraham Lincoln High School, I went ahead and purchased a breadboard and built ICOM 1.
So that's ICOM 1.
ICOM 1, with the 9-volt battery that operated.
So what did ICOM 1 do?
ICOM 1 had a little emitter detector, which, when aimed at my eye, would trigger a visible LED every time my lid went up or down. And I discovered that when an infrared beam was aimed at my eyeball, the light would be diffused and not reflected back to the detector. But when my lid came down, it would reflect to the detector. So every time I blinked, this little doohickey here, ICOM 1, would light up for the duration of the blink. And I realized that I had a genuine Morse code blink monitoring device.
What is the duration of the average blink?
Well, to determine that, I went back to all of my EEGs and looked at what we call blink artifact on an EEG, and discovered that a normal blink is 200 to 250 milliseconds in duration.
Wow.
That's 1/5 to 1/4.
So you can get 5 blinks for 1 second?
5 blinks in a second. And you could try this experiment yourself. Blink as fast as you can, count the number of seconds, and divide by the number of seconds, and you'll come up with 200 to 250 milliseconds per blink. So I had a blink detector. The next thing was to decide whether or not...
So would we call that a blinkometer or a blinkometer?
A blinkometer.
Blinkometer, okay.
A blinkometer, ICOM 1.
ICOM 1.
I wanted to convert those blinks into buzzing sounds that could be heard. And so, with an engineer friend of mine, I went ahead and took ICOM 1, the principles of ICOM 1, and put it into ICOM 2. And here you can see the buzzer on the top. And there's the emitter detector, which affixed to an iframe could pick up blinks. And this little blinkometer, electronic blinkometer, would buzz in the same way, in this way. Bzz, 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 bzz. So I had a Morse code generator that could create sound. The next thing I wanted to do was to eliminate normal blinks, the 200 milliseconds, because I realized that there were different kinds of blinks. There were purposeful blinks, and there were drowsy blinks. When we get drowsy, our blinks get longer and longer. For example, this is a drowsy blink.
Car driver, truck driver, pilot.
A pilot, a computer operator, someone falling asleep while they're driving or watching.
Or after a big lunch.
That's
That's me.
Big lunch. Right. People with narcolepsy, people with sleep disorders, sleep apnea, on and on and on. And I realized also that ADD in children might be the result of a disturbance in wakefulness, which I did prove to be the case in a subsequent study with a later model. Nevertheless, ICOM-3 has a little...
So we've now advanced from 2, and we're going to ICOM-3.
ICOM-3.
Okay.
And here we have a little dial that allows you to empirically filter out normal 200 to 250 millisecond blinks and only capture the long blinks. So this was ICOM-3.
Now, approximately what year was that, Bill?
This would have been around 1998, 1999.
Okay. And you were still working right there in your own medical office or facility.
That's right. Now, Glenn, by the way, did survive his stroke, and he ended up being paralyzed on his left side. And he is still alive, by the way. He's living in Napa. I just spoke to him a few days ago. I invited him to the show. He is totally paraplegic. He cannot move his legs. He's wheelchair bound, but he has normal functioning. And I managed to find the letter that he wrote.
Does he have verbal skills?
Pardon?
Verbal skills?
Yes, he has perfectly normal verbal skills. They all came back.
Fantastic.
And I have the beautiful letter that he wrote to me several years later when he became an established patient. But I also saw many other patients in the muscular dystrophy clinic. There was Willie, an Afro-American gent who developed the early stages of ascending Lou Gehrig's disease. When he heard about ICOM-2 and 3, he said, I would want one of those when it's commercialized so that if I do become paralyzed, I'll be able to communicate. Unfortunately, his referring doctor, Bob Mammon, who's a good friend of mine, he was the department chairman for family practice at the university. He called me himself 6 months later and said, Bill, would you see me? I'm having trouble swallowing. I saw Bob Mammon. He turned out to have descending ALS, and he begged me to build ICOM 4, 5, and 6, which I embarked on next.
We're going to take another commercial break, Bill, and then we're going to pick up with ICOMs 4, 5, and 6. Folks, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Somewhere in Time is the place to find what will be treasured for all time. A store full of the unexpected, with one of the largest beer and sports memorabilia collections on the West Coast. Vintage toys, casino and brothel memorabilia, Venton glassware, kerosene lamps from the 1800s, sun purple glassware, vintage neon, new and enlarged collections throughout the store. Have fun with the whole family and check out all the inventory in the store. Find the unexpected. That'll be treasured for all time at Somewhere in Time. Let's face it, flooding is a fact of life. You may not be able to predict, but you can always prepare to avoid losses to structures, land, and even lives. Traditional protection like sandbags many times don't work. The new solution, trap bag flood and erosion systems. Low cost, great support, high stability, and load capacity. Easy to store and move with quick and easy installation. Protect your life, home, business, or land. For more information on this revolutionary flood and erosion system, contact Trap Bag today.
Hi, I'm Paula.
And I'm Dan. We're the producers of the Tanner's Marketplace Antiques and Craft Shows at the Livestock Event Center on Wells Avenue.
I'd also like to tell you about our everyday location. We're at Somewhere in Time on South Virginia Street. We're Antique Antiques, booth number 46.
You'll find paintings by Nevada artists, collectible glass, vintage jewelry, Native American jewelry and baskets, antiques and unusual to unique items.
Find it all at Antique Antiques inside Somewhere in Time at 1313 South Virginia Street.
Come see us.
Hi, I'm Chris from Past Time at Somewhere in Time. Are you looking for that one-of-a-kind gift that you can't find in the big department store? I have something for all occasions. Got stuff? Need to know whether or not it has value or how to sell it? We can help with that too. Come and see me Tuesday or Wednesday at Past Time in Somewhere in Time at 1313 South Virginia Street in Reno. Just ask for Chris.
Welcome back again, folks. I'm Omer Raines, co-host Hugh Roy Marshall, guest Dr. William Torch, and we are hearing an incredible story. And Bill, when we left off, we were coming to ICOM 4, 5, and 6. Can you pick up at that point? And what year was this?
This was around 1998, 1999. Okay. I was the president of Nevada Inventors Association at that time, and I began to learn about patents, trademarks, and copyrights. And I was encouraged by a very enthusiastic inventors group and my patients in particular, that said, Bill, keep on going. You've got to make this happen, and to help paralyzed people, blind individuals, people of all different neurological conditions, learning disorders, ADD, the opportunities were infinite. And not to mention its use for transportation safety, identifying truckers who might fall asleep at the wheel.
Okay. And that led to ICOM 4.
ICOM 4. Now, as I mentioned, there were several books that I picked up. For example, this was the book by Walter Murch, In the Blink of an Eye, and there were other books that were being written at the same time about eyes. And we also mentioned Kinex, which was a Morse code generator which allowed the ability of a person to communicate with mouse clicks, and now eye blinks with the ICOM blinkometer. So ICOM 4 is illustrated here. Here I took the emitter detector and I put it onto an eye frame, and you can see it on the nasal bridge, and it's connected by a wire to a much more complicated ICOM 3, which now has multiple dials that can control the volume of the sound, not just bzz, bzz, but bzz, bzz, and also control the latency. In other words, eliminating normal from abnormal blinks.
Okay.
And then I connected this initially to a computer, and we were able to generate square wave signals whenever that little LED on the top, that little red LED would light up in response to a blink. That was ICOM 4. I reasoned that it would be nice to be able to do this wirelessly. So I went to Radio Shack and we bought an RF transmitter, and you can see that here. This RF transmitter was attached by Velcro to ICOM 4. Now we have ICOM 4A. And then we built a receiver that went to the computer. Now I was able to transmit eye blinks to a receiver that now could generate square waves on a computer. That was ICOM 4B. I love Radio Shack. I went to Radio Shack and I bought a wireless receiver to which you could attach fans, radios, TVs, and all kinds of toys. And I was able to turn the toys on and off, turn fans off and on, and set off alarms to call for attendance for a sick individual who might be wearing these glasses.
That's a really important part of your invention,
So that would call this ICOM 4B, and here you can see another RF transmitter which now could control even more complicated electronic devices in a similar manner. So this was ICOM 4.
And you said that Dr. Hawkins was one of the main recipients of this technology
I'll get to that surprise
that's an important thing for the guest to know about that. He's very well known.
And we'll get to the Hawkeye model shortly.
Named after Stephen Hawking.
Named after Stephen Hawking.
So we go now to ICOM 5.
ICOM 5, let's see where that is. I had it.
Well, this is the Hawkeye here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with ICOM 4, we could measure individual blinks, the duration of a blink. But I suddenly realized there's a lot of information in your eyes and your eye movements. What about lid velocity up and lid velocity down? Here's a drowsy blink. I'm closing my eyes slowly and opening it slowly. So here's a drowsy blink. And here's an arousal, a very, very fast blink, upwards. And here's a seizure, an epileptic series of blinks. Petit mal seizures, 3 blinks per second. And I realized I could now monitor epilepsy and epileptic individuals with the ICOM. So this is taking on an even greater importance as a medical device. So I asked myself, how do we measure velocity? Well, when you're going into Radio Shack and you cross the beam, that one beam cannot tell you if you're going in or out. It just buzzes. But what if you had a series of beams that you're walking through? Beam 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right. Now you can measure the velocity of your gait in and out. Well, that reasoning resulted in ICOM 5. And here you can see 5 emitter detectors in a linear array that is really scanning your eyes like a barcode scanner. And the barcode scanner could now go to an electronic system that could measure velocity as well as eye blink frequency. So this was ICOM 5, again, supplied by a 9-volt battery.
9-volt battery, yeah.
Now, at this particular point, I was the vice president of the Nevada Inventors Association, and I was nominated and elected to be president of the Nevada Inventors Association, and I started receiving grant proposals from a number of different organizations, the best of which at that time was the Center for Disease Control out of Atlanta, Georgia, part of the NIH. And they were looking for a device that, A, could identify people falling asleep, a device that could be used to call for emergency assistance by the elderly or some handicapped individual, and a device that might be used as a communication device. Well, here I had built ICOM 1 through 5, and I realized I was onto something, and I was going to apply for that grant from the CDC. And I then reasoned I needed to learn more about the eyes. What about the size of your pupil? What about constriction and dilation? What about where your eyes are looking? Are you looking to the right? Are you looking to the left, up or down? If I could capture a pupil and determine the XY coordinates of that pupil, now I have eye gaze and eye movement in addition to lids and velocity and acceleration, deceleration. So this time I switched from Radio Shack and I went to the Spy Shop. And I bought some micro cameras and I built ICOM 6 and at the same time applied for the CDC SBIR grant. I wrote the grant in the year 2000, and on 9/10, the day before the Trade Center was hit, I got a call from the CDC saying, Dr. Torch, we're honored to tell you that you have won an SBIR Phase 1 for $100,000.
Oh, beautiful.
I went out to celebrate that night. That was on that night, and then they were to call me at 7:30 the next morning, which they did, just as the trade centers were hit. And the Pentagon was under attack, and the plane missing over Pennsylvania just discovered.
Wow.
I put off the discussion for 2 weeks, and then regained my composure, and then proceeded to hire a crew of engineers, and I formed ICOM Corporation and started to work on ICOM 6, which I can tell you about next.
Go ahead.
ICOM 6 is represented here. Let me pull those out.
Yes. This it?
Yep.
Okay.
Here you can see the same eyeglasses. We have emitters and infrared emitter detectors that are part of the frame. But you can see now we have micro cameras that are inserted through the lenses. These are called endo cameras. They're aimed up at your eyes at about 45 degrees and can identify and see your pupil. So this is the right endo camera, this is the left. I also put an exo camera that looks out at the world. And I reasoned that perhaps we could identify where the pupils were looking relative to where your head and your eyes were facing. And I hired a software engineer, Dr. Publicover, from the University of Nevada Engineering Department, and we developed the software to identify where in your field of view your eyes were looking. You could now identify the XY coordinates of the center point of the pupils. And that was the basis for ICOM 6. I completed that, and during a period immediately thereafter, I had gone to 2 conferences in Washington, D.C.
We're going to take our last commercial break right now because it's significant what we're about to embark upon.
Okay.
Folks, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Somewhere in Time is the place to find what will be treasured for all time. A store full of the unexpected, with one of the largest beer and sports memorabilia collections on the West Coast. Vintage toys, casino and brothel memorabilia, Benton glassware, kerosene lamps from the 1800s, sun purple glassware, vintage neon, new and enlarged collections throughout the store. Have fun with the whole family and check out all the inventory in the store. Find the unexpected that'll be treasured for all time at Somewhere in Time.
Deluxe Travel, locally owned and operating since 1991, is the home for travel to Mexico and Central and South America. The crew at Deluxe Travel is bilingual, trustworthy, thorough, and caring. They will do everything possible to make your dream vacation the best it can be. Now is the time to book for winter travel, so stop by the office at 100 California Avenue or call 686-7000. You can also check us out on our website at deluxetravelLTD.com.
At Deluxe Travel, we sell dreams. Come in and plan yours.
Let's face it, flooding is a fact of life. You may not be able to predict, but you can always prepare to avoid losses to structures, land, and even lives. Traditional protection like sandbags many times don't work. The new solution, trap bag flood and erosion systems. Low cost, great support, high stability, and load capacity. Easy to store and move with quick and easy installation. Protect your life, home, business, or land. For more information on this revolutionary flood and erosion system, contact Trap Bag today.
You have got to come and see our bridal designer collection here at Precision Diamonds. We bought our building, lower the overhead. That means everyday low prices to you. Everything is handpicked here at Precision Diamonds.
Again, welcome back, folks. Omer Raines, my co-host, Roy Marshall, our guest, Dr. William Torch. Amazing story. Dr. Torch, we were up to, I think, you meeting a very famous person and getting into ICOM 7.
Yes. Well, I completed the CDC grant, and in the process, I was introduced to a Colonel Michael Russo, who is a neurologist and sleep specialist like myself, who had heard me speak at transportation conferences on the utility of the ICOM 6 for transportation safety. He said, "Bill, the military needs this device. Why don't you apply for a U.S. Army Phase 1 grant that we can test at Fort Rucker, Alabama, for Black Hawk helicopter pilots to identify falling asleep in a helicopter, and a device that could be used to identify friendly fire and collateral damage, usually due to inattention, sleepiness in pilots on long missions."
Oh, yeah.
So I applied for that grant, and fortunately I won a $75,000 Phase 1, completed that. They tested it at Fort Rucker, and I got complimentary statements saying that it will work in an electronic environment of a helicopter. So they tested it in real time, and they said, "Bill, you need to apply for a Phase 2 pre-commercialization grant because you've done such wonderful work with your team." I applied for the Phase 2, and within 6 months we got an additional $750,000.
Let me interrupt because of time constraints. Eventually, from DOD, Department of Defense, how much in the aggregate did you get to do research and development?
Oh, by that point it was close to $1 million.
No. At the end of the day, how much had you accumulated?
Well, that subsequently led to contracts with the Department of Defense and the U.S. Department of Transportation through congressional research initiatives, and I was able to receive, with now a group of 25 to 30 engineers, an additional $15 million, totaling approximately $16 to $17 million in grants for this entire project.
Fantastic.
That was great.
Now, and you met a famous person about this time, did you not?
I certainly did. During my work with the U.S. Army, and that led me to work with the U.S. Navy out of San Diego Naval Health Research Center. We incorporated ICOM into scuba masks. I went to Ohio, worked with the Air Force on a similar project, and they documented that the ICOM could be used for identifying hypoxemia at high altitude. While I was at Fort Rucker, I was introduced by Dr. Eric Veer, who is an ENT doctor, reviewing my grants and my accomplishments, and he said, "Bill, how would you like to go to Cape Canaveral with me tomorrow?" This was around 2008, and I said, "Where are you going, Eric?" He says, "I'm going to be flying with Stephen Hawking on his zero-G flight out of Cape Canaveral, NASA, and I'd like you to be my guest." I immediately took that opportunity, flew down with Eric, and I met Professor Hawking the next evening, and then I was fortunate enough to watch him leave on his zero-G flight. In the process, I met his caretaker, Sam Blackburn, who invited me to call him when we got a little farther along in the project. And about another year and a half later, I called Sam to tell him about what we had accomplished with ICOM 6, which was now evolving into a series of very highly functional iMouse ICOM biosensor communicator controllers, which could now operate all computers, communication software, wheelchairs, robots, and possibly even drones, building elevators to operate by the eyes for handicapped individuals.
So along the way, you ended up meeting with Dr. Hawking several times, including at Cambridge University in England, right?
Yes. My wife's mother, who is Irish, died and wanted to be interred in north of Belfast. And after the ceremony, I asked my wife if I could call Stephen Hawking, and she says, "Be my guest." I called Sam Blackburn, and he said, "You've done what? You've done that? I'm going to speak to Hawking and see what his thoughts are." I got a call back within a half hour, and they said, "Can you fly over to Cambridge tomorrow morning?" Which I did. And this led to 3 subsequent visits with the great astrophysicist and the development of the Hawkeye Project to develop a pair of eye frames for him. And here you can see the outcome of the Hawkeye Project, developing ICOM for Stephen Hawking. And this was a model, crude model of ICOM 7 with the emitter detectors and the exo and endo camera and a place to put all the electronic. And his one comment was, "Can you do it in black?" And this was the Hawkeye model for Stephen Hawking.
Beautiful.
The goal was to make it much more ergonomically attractive. The goal was to make it look like this, a pair of music in my glasses.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this was by Nike, and you can see electronics, batteries, wireless communication, but this time having eye tracking and eye mouse capability to control all computers and wheelchairs, et cetera, et cetera.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
I'm going to fast forward again because of time constraints to somewhere around 2007, because that's when I first became introduced to ICOM. A Silicon Valley mutual friend wanted me to come as a potential consultant. And when I entered a medical office, all of a sudden I see a big Dodge Ram truck sliced in two with a wraparound windshield. And you told me that's a simulator. And it did all sorts of wonderful things, and many people tried it. So when I came back with Maui Jim.
Yes.
And the week thereafter with a major venture capitalist out of Silicon Valley. Because everybody now is fascinated. They're enraptured, and they're following this. And Maui Jim, in fact, was working with Google. But you were now, I think it was ICOM 7.
Yes.
And so tell us how you went from ICOM 7 to ICOM 8.
Well, I was fascinated with Maui Jim's ergonomic designs, and I thought the ICOM would make a perfect match with that system, with the goal perhaps of getting it into Google. Mm-hmm. I also contacted Luxottica out of Milan and tried to engage them, and also met with people associated with lens crafters and Nike as well to try to see if we could commercialize the system. And in the process, I kept developing the ICOM for its ergonomic design, and here you can see a multiplicity of ICOM 7 and now ICOM 8 systems, which we are now building for Stephen Hawking. Unfortunately, due to the sequestration in 2012, we could no longer keep ourselves alive because of loss in grants. But we were then lucky enough to be acquired by a gentleman, Jim Margraf, who was a serial entrepreneur, and he thought so much of the project that he decided to raise capital, and in the process he raised an additional $17 million and was able to keep the ICOM project alive. He introduced the ICOM into Google Glass through a contract with Google, and then finally, on October 26, 2016, Google had been so impressed by the accomplishments of ICOM and iFluence that they offered to acquire iFluence and ICOM technology with its 75 to 100 patents for future commercialization. And now, ICOM iFluence technology is being incorporated into virtual reality head-mounted displays, Google Dreamwear, and I'm looking forward to seeing this commercial product released for all of its humanitarian uses that we were hoping to accomplish in the first 20 years.
Oh, definitely.
And we were just trying to keep up with the technology and all of the advances that all of the Silicon Valley tech companies were.
Yeah.
And here we have Google coming to Reno, and I'm going to put, if I can, our simulator in the Google plant, if I can make that connection, and see if we can work with Google to get the ICOM 9 out to all disabled individuals all over the world for all applications, for Stephen Hawking, etc., who wants to incorporate artificial intelligence, EEG, electrical pickups to read his mind, which would also synergize with his eyes to control his computers and to write all of his books.
Beautiful.
Well, Google has taken, I think,
impressed.
not only the national but the international lead in many ways with respect to artificial intelligence and with respect to virtual reality. So, as I said to you, Roy, earlier, it's pretty timely that Google has announced they're going to be coming here. So,
and I was,
we have only a minute left, but I want to.
I was introduced to Google a few weeks ago. I made a visit, and I met many individuals at Google in Mountain View. One of them was Ray Kurzweil, who wrote the book, The Singularity is Near. Well, Ray Kurzweil was very impressed with what we have done, and now I can brag that the singularity is here in Reno.
We have 30 seconds left. In that time, you are now the inventor in residence at a particular museum here in Reno, and I think you're going to embark upon a book, well-deserved, called for. Anything else we should know?
The Discovery Museum has a Da Vinci Spark laboratory, and they have heard the same story that you and the viewers might be watching today, and they've invited me to be inventor in residence, and I gave my first presentation with the hope that they will create an exhibit with all of the different artifacts illustrating how you turn an idea from $2.50 Radio Shack.
I've got about 15 seconds. I want to thank the viewers for watching. Tune in again next week for another story in Old Tales of Nevada, past and present. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. John O'Brien, I think, will be back. Certainly you will.